Okay. Welcome everybody. Good evening to the Village of New Paltz Planning Board meeting, the first meeting of February on February the 6th. I'm Rich Sudo. I'm stepping in as chair today for Zach Bielecki, and we have 3 items on our agenda today. We are going to start with what you may have seen as the second item on the agenda because it's relatively quick, and we'll honor that applicant by bringing that up, and then we'll get to the hearing around PV 21AX New Paltz Apartments, and then the final review will be the PV 23-9 7 Prospect Street, Prospect Estates. So we'll hold comments of either sort until we'll do the first item on the agenda, which is the resolution for PV 2319 2 Taylor Street, the Camino application. Welcome. So we've had a chance to review this application in multiple meetings. The property that's subject to this resolution is a 0.37 acre location at 2 Taylor Street in New Paltz, as shown on the tax map as section 86.26, block 2, lot 36, and it's located in the R1 zoning district. We have a resolution of approval prepared for the project, which has only one specific condition, which I think may have already been resolved, but it's in here because we've come to the meeting and we're looking to vote on the resolution as is. So the resolution has all the typical information you might see. Do you have a copy of the resolution?
We were given it by email.
Okay, you got it committed to memory. So there's a couple sections that are very typical of the resolution, but what we typically want to do is read the specific conditions. And the one particular specific condition in this resolution is that the site plan shall be supplemented to show utility connections and must meet the approval of the village superintendent of public works before it may be signed. So are you aware of that?
Yes, and I have submitted as of Friday an updated site plan. Apparently Blue has not had a chance to review it yet, but it does have the connection sewer and water that he requested specifically. So it should be acceptable to him, but certainly the condition is acceptable to us.
Great. And Autumn, is there any update on that we need to? Okay. All right, great. So with that single specific condition, there are many general conditions that are typically incorporated into the resolution. Any questions? No. Okay. So request a motion to approve the resolution for PB 23-19 2 Taylor Street. So second?
Second.
Okay, and then we'll do a voice vote.
Aye.
1 second, Amy. We'll do. Okay, did you record that? Okay, so Amy Cohen, aye. Go ahead.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. All right. So resolution approved, and if you could please follow up with the planning board with the building inspector for the signature on the plan that's now final, and then ultimately the signature on the resolution. And is there any timeline for them to do that in terms of getting the signed resolution? So I'm not signing this today. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So now we want to invite anyone who's here for a general public comment, not a comment in conjunction to the formal public hearing that we're holding today for the project PV 21AX, but any general public comment for the planning board. Yes. Sure, please. There's a microphone here, so it's always best to come up. Hello. Can you share your name?
I'm Allison Nash. I live at 11 Prospect Street, and I'd like to address the proposal for 5 and 7 Prospect Street that's coming up today.
Okay, so there's not a public hearing for that, but you can share what you have in terms of comment.
Yes, I understand. Okay, so I wrote everything out because I want to be very precise with my position. As I will be directly affected by the proposed plans for number 5 and 7 Prospect Street, I want to express my strong concerns about these projects. I live next door to number 7, and as number 5 is set back, it is quite visible from my house as well. Let me start out by saying that I have been a customer at Sam and Rick's, that's Prospect Estates, gas station for years, and I appreciate the work that they do there. I am hoping that the planning board can work with them to create plans that conform to the character of the neighborhood, 1 and 2 family historic homes in which long-term residents know one another and one another's children. Many residents are customers of Sam and Rick, view them as part of our neighborhood, and hope they can appreciate our concerns. They currently have 3 rent-by-the-room properties on Prospect Street, all in which more than 3 unrelated people reside. Note that they also own number 3 Prospect, at which some families reside, but number 3 is a multifamily dwelling in the B2 district. All of the houses owned by the Serters in the R2 district on Prospect Street, that is the whole rest of the street, are single room rentals with more than 3 unrelated residents. As discussed at previous planning board meetings, this is not code compliant. Village code permits up to 3 unrelated people per dwelling in the R2 district. That's 212.5, I'm sure you know. At number 7, next door to my house, 6 students currently reside in a single family dwelling. The proposed plan is to nearly double the size of the house, thus greatly expanding a use that is already not code compliant, as it is unlikely that the expansion is designed to rent to a family. Furthermore, number 5 Prospect appears to be specifically designed as single room rentals, with a maximum number of bedrooms permitted by code and with a bathroom in every bedroom. Why does Village Code not permit single room rentals with more than 3 unrelated people in the R2 district? To answer this question, I turn to the purpose of the code. So now I'm going to read the purpose as stated in 212.4. Conserve and enhance property values. So that is to encourage the most appropriate use of land in the community in order to conserve and enhance property values. The appropriate use in the R2 district is 1 and 2 family homes. In dwellings that are designed for single room rentals, the interior of the home is restructured or built to contain as many bedrooms as is allowed for the size of the property. Such properties can then have many more residents than those in 1 and 2 family homes, bringing much noise and many more cars. Additionally, as in my case, living next door to a house with 10 students and a parking lot for 9 cars does not conserve nor enhance property values. The second part, the second purpose, provide for adequate housing. That is to make provision for a growing residential population with a variety of needs while preserving the quality of existing stable residential neighborhoods. While there is a need in the village for affordable housing, the plans for 5 and 7 actually contribute to the dearth of affordable housing for families. 5 Prospect had previously housed 2 families, and 7 had also housed 2 families before becoming a chiropractor's office. Now that 7 has been converted to single room rentals, it will likely never go back to a family home, and especially if the addition is approved. Once de facto rooming houses are built, they are likely to remain as such. It is very expensive to convert them back to family homes, thus leading to fewer affordable homes in the village. Furthermore, while single room rentals provide students with rents that they can afford, they often do not provide adequate housing for students. Before I retired as a professor at the college, students would tell me about the problems they had with housemates with whom they hadn't chosen to live. From too much noise and piles of dirty dishes to being afraid of a housemate. A healthier introduction to independent living, and one that conforms to code, would be for students to share rentals with people they knew, 2 or 3 students living together as a household and sharing the rent. But it is much more lucrative for landlords to fit as many rooms as possible into a dwelling and rent by the room. This system leads to fewer affordable houses and causes problems for neighbors as well as for the students themselves. It only benefits landlords. Finally, such short-term rentals with more than 3 unrelated people greatly diminishes rather than improves the quality of the existing stable neighborhood of Prospect Street as described above. Okay, the next purpose, preserve and enhance aesthetic and historic values. That is, to preserve and enhance the natural and man-made beauty of the community, to preserve its character of community, and to preserve local historic sites and buildings. The Historic Preservation Commission's advice about these plans is to preserve the carriage house at 5 Prospect and renovate the inside. And if that wasn't acceptable, to reduce the footprint of the proposed new structure. For number 7, the HPC was not in favor of raising the iconic barn and the creation of the proposed huge unsightly addition, something that they referred to as a Frankenhouse. You got that in a report from them. The current plans for 5 and 7 do not heed this advice. While the HPC's advice is non-binding, the local zoning code is, the village zoning code is. We all know that other single-room rentals are scattered throughout the village, but the Serters' current plan are on a much larger scale. Coupled with the single-room rentals they already own, the number of residents and cars on Prospect Street from Main to John would more than double. If the plans are approved, the upper portion of Prospect Street will consist of the following single-room short-term rentals that are not code compliant. Number 6 with 12 unrelated individuals, number 5 with 6 unrelated individuals, and number 7 with 9 unrelated individuals. So it's 27 in all. What can be done to prevent non-compliance with the code definition of family? In a previous planning board meeting about 5 and 7, the issue of the code definition of family was raised. Someone on the board opined that compliance with the code definition was an enforcement issue. I want to point out that Mayor Rogers sent an email to me stating that, and I'm quoting, quote, "Personally, I am opposed to having our building department try to keep track of who is related to who. I believe it would set our local government up for failure. I believe the building department should be primarily focused on making sure buildings are safe. I do not want our staff to get involved in anyone's personal business." That's the end of the quote. Given the lack of interest in enforcement, this leaves the planning process as the crucial time to ensure that 5 and 7 Prospect are code compliant. If all indications are that these properties will be rented by the room for more than 3 unrelated occupants, the project should not be approved. Before closing, I want to remind the board about an attachment I included in a previous letter on this issue. Given the difficulty in defining family in ways that are inclusive of many different kinds of families, but still preserve the character of family districts, New York State has issued a legal memorandum for municipality zoning laws and building codes. In it, they create a definition of family that courts have upheld and that is consistent with the definition of family in our village code. And I attached that memorandum again.
Thank you. We have that?
Yes, I didn't print copies for everybody because usually I'm told not to, so I didn't.
It's okay.
So who should I give this to?
You can give it to Autumn,
Okay, would you want
please.
me to Look at this meanwhile. and give to her?
Well, we experienced it, but we can
Okay.
give it to Autumn. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Allison. Anyone else with a general public comment? Again, we are, this is not the hearing that is open for today.
I'm glad it's not the hearing, but I did want to thank Allison for the thoroughness of her research and also former Mayor Terrence Duncan's thorough research. I believe you probably have that more recent letter. The idea of more affordable housing, the point that Allison made, I think was impressive to me because I had struggled with that. Like, we do need more affordable housing, but in fact, if these 2-family dwellings are being replaced by, you know, even if it's not intended now to be for singles to live there, since each bedroom has a bathroom, you know, a future owner could do that, and reverting them back to, you know, 2-family duplexes or 2-family dwellings would be probably the point about enforcement. Also, you know, what is village code for if, you know, people say they're going to do one thing, do another, and know that they are not going to, the code's not going to be enforced. I'd also like to add, in all the paperwork that you've certainly received, and I know this isn't the hearing, but there are 2 points. It doesn't just affect Allison being the next door neighbor. I'm next to her, so, you know, it's certainly that whole back area that the barn masks, you know, everything to the corner of Prospect Street. It's actually a beautiful, you know, faded blue-gray color, and I understand if it really is falling down, but Mayor Tim Rogers had the suggestion in his letter that something that would resemble that might be a nice possibility. And when I was walking my dog a couple of days ago, I walked down John Street and then turned onto Prospect, and I realized that barn does not just shield, you know, the further structures from Allison's or even just from mine, but also from Jerry Benjamin, who's next to us. His whole backyard, you know, faces on that. That's a buffer for him as well. Probably for the Massendegus who are next to Benjamin's. And even I was walking on the other side of the street from John back to my house. Even those houses across the street have that barn as a buffer. So if you go and, you know, take a walk, and it's subtle, but it really makes a difference on that street to have that there. And imagining having, you know, a big structure. My last short point is that there is a question about whether runoff would, see, how's it go? Will stormwater discharges flow to adjacent properties? And of course they checked no, but I can't imagine that what our driveway has been is downhill from that property. It goes down from the 5 and 7 to Allison's, to our property is downhill, and our driveway has been more and more of a lake whenever it's flooding. If you drive by our house now, it's embarrassing because it's now all rutted mud. And I am sure that, you know, any more construction or whatever, you know, some of it is going to come down the hill. So I don't think that there would be no impact with water discharge. That's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, we want to move on to the public hearing of tonight and open that. Motion to open the public hearing for PB 21AX New Paltz Apartments. All in favor? Aye. Amy?
Aye. I also, by the way, I have some updates from the town board.
Oh, great. I'm going to ask if we can do that following the hearing now that we've opened.
That's
it.
fine.
Sorry about
Thank you.
I don't know if anybody had those because I saw that Bill wasn't able to make it. Thank you. So there's a sign-in sheet. I can go.
You're going to read the.
Yes. Is everyone who'd like to speak at the hearing signed in? Want to add? Okay, great. So we are reopening the public hearing for PB 21AX New Paltz Apartments. This public hearing originally opened on November the 9th and has had 2 sessions since that date. I'm going to read a summary of the project and then invite those that signed up to speak. So the summary is the applicant, Commercial Street Partners, the project sponsor, is proposing to construct a 250 plus or minus unit student housing campus consisting of townhouse and cottage-style homes, approximately 724 beds, with a clubhouse and fitness center, pool and patio area, associated parking, active recreation area, and nature trail on 2 parcels containing 129.3 plus or minus acres located along Route 32 South and Cross Creek Road, currently within the town of New Paltz, and known as Section 86.4, Block 2, Lots 3.119 and 4.340 on the town tax maps. The proposed action includes an annexation of the parcels into the village of New Paltz, rezoning of the parcels, currently zoned R1 under the town of New Paltz zoning law, to R3 under the village of New Paltz zoning law, and a subdivision/lot merger that will result in 4 separate lots. The proposed development will be located on a single 60-acre lot, and the remaining 3 lots will remain vacant or is currently developed with existing single-family homes. So inviting up the first person who's listed, William Schuster. I just want to note as you come up, Mr. Schuster, that all the comments received through the public hearings are being recorded. We have a court reporter who's accurately reporting everything. And so we won't necessarily be taking notes, but you should know that you could also submit what you've shared on paper if you'd like. And there are many submissions that have come in on paper too. So just note that that's the other way people have brought information.
Will do, thank you. Good evening, my name is William Schuster. I live at 5 Hawk Hill Road in the town of New Paltz, on the first residential street west of the project area. My wife and I purchased this property and moved here last year, in part because of the location's natural features and its quiet character. We both feel that this proposal, with more than 10 times higher development density, is out of character with the surrounding neighborhoods. But my primary comments come as a forest ecologist for the past more than 30 years, managing thousands of acres of this region's forests and studying and publishing details of how trees and forests function and the benefits that they provide. One part of the project under consideration proposes to remove 5.6 acres of mature native forest in the northwestern corner of the project area. Just walking by, I can see that this is part of a healthy forest remnant more than 100 years old. The large oaks alone, as documented in my research and with other colleagues, absorb and store for decades to centuries, many times more carbon than the other species. The canopy emergent trees, including oaks and cottonwoods, support very high levels of biological diversity, potentially even as mentioned in the environmental assessment, providing suitable nesting sites for the endangered bald eagle. Larger and older trees with cavities and or loose bark, such as shagbark hickories common in forested wetlands, older maples, and the recently dead ash trees, could potentially provide roosting sites essential for the survival of both the endangered Indiana bat and the endangered long-eared bat. These are only a few of the benefits that such trees can provide. In such areas lying outside of the area previously used for agriculture, including wetlands, that I hope will be very thoroughly assessed beforehand for any potential negative ecological impacts. It is my understanding that the town of New Paltz, where these lands lie, requires a tree inventory of areas to be disturbed or converted from forest to other land use. I do not know whether the village requires this, but I hope that it will. I would be very happy to supply my professional assistance to the village planning board, the developers, and or their consultants to help identify any particularly ecologically valuable trees and sections of forest on the project area. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person, Francis Schuster. Okay, thank you. Donna Rutland.
Donna Rutland. I live at 21 Hawk Hill Road. I spoke at the last meeting and I have submitted my comments. I also have comments from 2 other neighbors, and I'd just like to confirm that you have received those. Is that possible?
Who are the neighbors?
Okay, one is Robert Book, and they,
It would have been a previous meeting.
okay, one from my husband and I, Bob Jones and Donna Rutland, that was submitted online, and one from Lorraine Walsh.
Yes, that's great.
Okay, what I'd like to know, is that you have all these, have there been any answers from the developer to any of our concerns?
No, not at this time. The process is that the public hearing is the opportunity to receive all this information and all the
Okay.
comments and questions and considerations from the public. Then those are compiled and we have an opportunity to discuss and respond to those. And then there will be which will take place in the public meeting. And then there will be ultimately a publication that I can speak through of
Okay,
how that
so-
works later. But we don't in real time respond to the comments being raised in the public hearing.
Okay, but do we have any timeline when we might hear from the developer? Since there are so many concerns.
Yeah, I
from-
understand. I wouldn't want to speak to a timeline, but I can tell you a sequence, which is that
Okay.
the next thing that will happen, which is that it will all be compiled and it will be discussed at the planning board in the company of the developer. So, depending on our meetings, other applications, that'll happen over the next several months.
Did that open? to
Is there a
the-
timeline that's required of us to complete the review? Because that's the only timeline we could give you.
There is, but it'll probably be extended.
Right.
Yeah,
Because
because there's a
there's-
lot to process here.
Lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was, I just want to make sure you had our comments.
Yeah.
And on timelines from the developer.
Yep, thank you. Allison Nash, did you want to speak to this project as well for the hearing? No, okay. And June, did you want to speak to this? That's cool. That's it. Is there anyone online that's here to speak at the public hearing for PB 21 AX New Paltz Apartments? Okay, let's invite him. Hand and a thumb. Could you come off mute and introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, this is Lorraine Walsh, and I did submit a letter which you've acknowledged, that Donna mentioned. I just have a question about a little bit more on the process. So after you have a couple of more, meetings where you discuss all of the comments and questions and issues that have been raised, at these public hearings with the developer, do they then have to amend the draft environmental impact statement to respond to all of those issues? Or do they just move into preparing a final environmental impact statement to submit to you for another hearing and approval?
Yeah, thanks, Ms. Walsh. I was planning to share what are the next steps. So I can do that now if there are no other comments, because it sounds like a relevant question and it's also helpful for us as members to consider closing the hearing.
Thank you. That's the only question I have.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on? Yes.
In discussing next steps, this all depends on the annexation. Can you discuss that process too? Because this is all just fluff until the annexation is decided.
Right.
When does that occur? When are those hearings for the town and the village?
Yep.
And how, explain the sequence to us.
Definitely. Is anyone else online that has a comment to make in the hearing? And then I can explain the sequence and I'll ask for help from my colleague, Emily. Okay. So the public hearing can be closed at the vote of the board, and written comments are able to be accepted up to 10 days following the closure of a public hearing. So there is still an additional 10 days. And even that, the remaining time open for the written comments if there's some reason we believe that that's necessary, might be possible to be extended. But just to keep in mind, as of today's date, that would be until February 16th. Written comments would be available to be accepted, of which we have many already and more might come. So in terms of the next steps, the applicant will compile the comments and draft responses. So the first step is that all the information that's been gathered, which those of you that have been following is certainly like categorical, and then some detail within each one of those categories. That will all be compiled and the applicant will prepare draft responses. At a future meeting, the board will discuss the comments and our own observations and questions. You may have noticed that during the public hearing, there's not a lot of comment from the board because our opportunity is once all of the public's information and questions are presented. And so we'll discuss our comments and our own board observations. Then the board will work with the applicant to prepare a final. This one everybody's heard referred to as a draft EIS, environmental impact statement. Working with the applicant, the board will prepare a final environmental impact statement, which will consist of the draft. That was the piece, the preparation that brought us here to this hearing, corrections or revisions to the draft. So if there's any information that needs to be outright changed or corrected as a result of any of the comments or discussion in the DEIS, that will be another document available to the board and the public. A summary of all substantial comments received and the board's responses to those comments. So the applicant responds to all the comments at the front end, it all gets compiled, and then it's the board's responsibility to prepare a final EIS after we've gone through this process of review that I just described, which will be extensive because, as you all know, it's not just a significant number of comments, but it's a significant project that will require some period of discussion. I asked Emily because there's often law that requires us to complete elements of these processes over a certain period of time. We may or may not be able to complete it in that period of time, but we may have to ask the applicant for an extension in order for us to do the diligence it will take to go through all the comments that were prepared. This environmental review or the seeker process must be complete before any decisions can get made to move the project forward to the town and or village board's consideration for the next step. And that next step would be the town and village board's consideration of to proceed with the annexation of the project site into the village. So this entire seeker DEIS becomes an FEIS with all the material that says comment 1, response, and all compiled and made public before those town and village process that will consider the annexation. And the town and village process about this project and its annexation into the village will also include opportunities for the public to comment.
Can I just amend that a little bit? They could start their hearings before we finish. The village and town boards can't make a decision until the seeker process is done, but they might start their hearing before that. I can't say.
Okay.
What if they consolidate? I'm sorry.
You mean, I don't
What if they consolidate?
I don't know what you mean by that.
There's a current discussion related to the.
I thought that would happen before this process.
Yeah, I don't think we can predict whether that would happen. I think we have our process, which is sort of our law and code, and I think that's all we can stick with. If that were to happen, I'm sure that that would be a new consideration and a new question to be answered. It would still require zoning of that property, regardless of it's the same municipality or not. So there still would be some kind of a zoning correction or change, but I don't think we want to introduce that into this stew.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the important point there to just reinforce is that the general discussion about whether the annexation is a good idea and whether the project is a good idea, that all needs to happen at the village board and town board. We're really just looking at the environmental impacts, which needs to happen before that other discussion.
Okay. Amy. You're muted, Amy.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. I just wanted to piggyback a little bit on what Rachel just brought up about the consolidation. This has been brought to my attention. We have a lot of consolidation meetings that are going to be happening. And in the consolidation study, there's going to be an independent, thorough study of water and sewer usage in our village and in our town. And I think for this project to go forward, we're going to have to make sure that we are able to supply the water and that this is going to happen. I mean, this is a very consequential project. I mean, it's huge. It's the size of a new town inside of our town. So they're going to be requiring a lot of water. And I was trying to get a handle on the percentage of water, but it looks like it could even be like a 15 to a 20% increase in our water sales from the village of New Paltz. Well, to the village of New Paltz. So I came up with an idea, and it's not an idea on the board, it's a personal idea that I'd like to express to this developer tonight. And my idea is that this developer takes a step back. And this is a friendly idea. It's not a demand or anything like that. But the reason that I'm thinking that perhaps for this developer to take a step back for 18 months or 2 years, my reasoning behind that is because an independent study of the water and sewer system is extraordinarily costly. And this is going to be done in the consolidation study. So this would be something that they wouldn't have to do. It's going to be done anyway. That's number one. Number two, annexation is very complicated and costly, and it's very time consuming. If the village and the town were to consolidate, that would be another step that could be avoided. So this is actually just a friendly idea for the developer to put the project on hold for maybe 18 or 20 months or until this consolidation thing is figured out and these water studies are done. Because without this water and sewer, I don't even know if this project can happen. And we have a lot of other things going on with waters and sewers right now, and we don't really know exactly where we're going to be at. We have two giant apartment complexes coming down by Rycor, and the other one, and Kimlin down by Agway. We have two hotels, one definitely,
sorry
one
to interrupt.
potentially. So anyway, I'll just wrap it up by saying that I think we need to have this independent study, and this would be one way that this could be studied. This project could be studied in the consolidation, since it's a village and town project, and because it's going over both of us, and because it's so complicated with the water and with infrastructure issues. Anyway, that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. So coming back to making sure we clarify the steps in the process for everyone. Thanks for that clarification, Emily, which was that while we are in the discussion regarding the DEIS and all the comments that were brought to the public and looking to prepare the final EIS, which, as I shared, is the sort of board's responsibility to prepare ultimately in collaboration with the applicant, the town and village may begin the conversation about annexation, and it may in fact take place inside of or outside of this other concept that's been brought up, which is not part of the planning board's purview. So that would be something, just in terms of the audience and your interest in this, is to pay attention to what meetings are happening in your town and village forums, because those are places where this discussion could continue. If the annexation proceeds, then the project will come back to the village planning board as a complete application. Well, a proposed application, let's call it. We wouldn't consider it complete, and for site plan approval. And that process will also include a public hearing, just like any of the more modest projects that we have come to this planning board, which open a public hearing, give full notice, extend if necessary, and allow for public's comment. That would be on the actual application as amended by any sort, and with the information from the environmental impact statement. That's the final version prepared by us through the seeker process. So those are the steps that we would proceed from now. And in order to proceed with any of those steps, we have to close this public hearing in order to move the next steps of the process forward. Any questions about where we go from here? Amy, any questions about where we go from here in terms of this particular process and the consideration of closing the public hearing?
Personally, I would like to make a motion to keep the public hearing open. I'd like to see a little bit more publicity about this public hearing. I think that there's a lot of people that have a lot to say, and from what I understand, I can't see the audience from where I am, but from what I understand, there are very few people in the room. I don't know what's going on there today.
Yeah.
But I would like to make a motion to keep the public hearing open.
Second.
Hold on one second, Mike. Hold on one second, okay? I will let you speak, but I just want you to ask one second. So I want to know, first of all, we have a public meeting. We have public meeting rules for the village. The three of us are here present, and that's a requirement because we make a quorum. I am interested in knowing whether a person who's offering remote is able to make a motion and or vote.
Yes, she's part of the meeting, and we had to have enough people in the room for the quorum, but
Yep.
she is part of the meeting.
I
Yes.
thought so too. So thank you. So Mike, there's a motion on the table that we have to consider. You'll have an opportunity to speak if you just hold on one second. Well, we always would have discussion about the motion before we vote on it. So- Yes. Okay, thank you. Amy, thank you. I'm hearing a motion to keep the public hearing open. I'm hearing your comments about the fact that you think the hearing should be publicized even further than it's been, and that there's no one in the room, or there's fewer people than you might have expected in the room today. I want to say that I think this has been publicized significantly, and it's been open for 3 months with multiple public opportunities, in-person opportunities for comments to be submitted. We've received written comments from lots of different persons. We understand that there were forums at the college that were assembled to then bring back comments. I feel as though the only way we can proceed with our diligence on this project is if we close this public hearing and move forward. And I don't believe any of the things that have come in the past 2 hearings actually are raising substantive new comments about the considerations for this project. So I want to honor your motion, but in comment to the motion, I want to say that I don't agree that it's a necessary next step.
Do you mind if I just add to that? It's obviously not my decision, but I did want to just add a piece of information that despite it not being required, the applicant did put signs up on the property pursuant to what the town requires for public hearings, even though that's not required for a seeker hearing. Just out of an effort to make this as widely known as possible, those signs were placed for the public to see.
So Rachel, I wanted to offer, I know you said that you seconded the motion. Can you explain your rationale for that?
Mine's more, I guess, my own personal failure. I was supposed to attend a meeting on Monday on campus with the environmental task force. And I didn't wake up. I work a night shift and sometimes that happens to me. So I know that there was a lot of, there was a desire there from that group to have more of an opportunity to participate. And had I been at that meeting, I would have been able to say, hey, there's a meeting tomorrow. And I think they might, I mean, I don't even know. I don't know who showed up at the meeting. That's my reasoning. I don't know if there's any rush or.
Well, I think that there's a really clear process that we've discussed, and it's already been fairly unusual to keep this hearing open for the 90 days that it's been open. We have heard from that student group, and we've been in an email with another professor from the college who indicated that there was some student interest in comment. They've not been here, since the first meeting, and they've had an ample opportunity. And also, there's an unlimited opportunity for them to submit comments in public, both in the window of the public hearing, but indefinitely. There's never been something submitted to us that's not under consideration when it comes to the board, and we've not gotten anything from them, or if we have, we haven't. So, you know, I think if we consider this as still an ongoing discussion about the motion to continue and to maintain the public hearing open, I want to give Mike Moriello, who's the attorney representing the applicant, a chance to comment about the hearing, not the application.
No, I'm the attorney for the applicant, and also the land is that the project is being built on is owned by my wife and I and another person, another partner. We have no stake in the project, no equity stake in the project. I won't do that as a lawyer. So what I want to say is that one of the very important parts of the public hearing, after the close of the public hearing process, is called mitigation. That is what the applicant has to do once that public hearing process is closed. Mitigation is something that's done, as Rich said, in conjunction with the board. There is going to be, in this case, a plan resubmitted. I can guarantee you, this is a stone-clad guarantee, that it will have less units. I can also guarantee you that it's going to be pulled back from certain areas from where it is now. These are all things that we've talked about internally. I think that those things are going to be improvements to the project. We're talking internally about some other improvements to the project too, which I don't want to get into here in a public forum, but I just wanted to say that I'd like to get the public hearing closed so we can get to that point, because I think that's the point that's important in terms of what the project really is and what it represents. We've had to look at 5 different alternatives now. What we want to do is get it down to a preferred alternative by the board. And that process requires the public hearing to be closed. As far as the public hearing process goes, I think that the salient issue under seeker, seeker has what they call a rule of reason. And all through the courts, they say, look, it's not every conceivable environmental impact has to be considered, but there's a rule of reason applied. And those impacts that could be significant or that could be incapable of being mitigated, for instance, must be considered and going forward in the process. And at this point, we haven't heard any new issues at all. It's been pretty much the same issues since the beginning of the public hearing process. And, you know, for going forward, we won't hear any new issues either, because we are aware of what the major issues are. And our job as the professionals that are representing the developer, and the developer's job is to mitigate those impacts. So the board can say, yeah, we'll go forward with the environmental review. As far as public hearings go, at the conclusion of this public hearing, and like Rich said, we will have public hearings for the annexation. There'll be public hearings for site plan, special use permit, and subdivision approval. So all of those public hearings will also occur. I would just like to ask the board that we put a tremendous amount of effort into this project, and an amazing amount of money has been spent in an effort to make a really comprehensive review from the environmental perspective. I'd like to try and get this public hearing closed tonight if possible, so we can move forward and present what we think is really going to be something special for the town and the village going forward. You know, the process with the DEIS is different than if you have a neg deck. A negative declaration would be a much less of a review. This process is much, much more vigorous, and I expect that this board is going to hold us to the standards all the way through the remainder of the environmental review. So that's my talk.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for allowing him to make those comments. So we have a motion from Amy to continue to maintain the public hearing open. And it's the responsibility of ours to make sure that we've had a discussion about that motion. And because it's on the table, it has to be voted on.
Just offer one other thought is that if you think that there are some comments still out there that need to come in, you could close the hearing portion and leave the written comment open more than the 10 days. If you thought a longer written comment period would help. That way the board could still keep moving with all the other projects that need to be on our upcoming agendas and not have more public hearings, but we would give a little bit more time for the written comment, if that's just an option to consider.
Thanks, Emily. The one consideration of maintaining the written comment open is that we still wouldn't have a complete set of comments until we close that written comment period.
I'm not saying indefinitely, but if you wanted it to be 20 days instead of 10 days or something like that, you know.
Yeah, if there was some rationale as to why those extra days would matter, then that could be considered. Thanks. Any more comment about the motion to keep the public hearing open?
As far as keeping the written comment open, I don't see how it would be a detriment to keep the written comment portion open for another 20 days or 30 days or.
Well,
I don't see.
I mean, if we're leaving oh my God.
We hear you, Amy.
Can you hear me? If you're
Yep.
leaving the letter writing open, what's the difference if we just leave the public hearing open for our next meeting or from 2 meetings from that and give people a last chance? Rachel just told us that she has some students that she thinks will come. And I just really think there's a lot of people out there. We got all these letters. And what's the difference if we leave it open for another 2 weeks and let everybody feel like they've been heard? We're going to leave the letters open anyway, and we can't move forward. Why not just leave the public hearing open? I just would like someone to second it and we can vote on it.
And then if there's no one to comment, it won't take very long, will it? If there actually aren't any comments, the public hearing, keeping it open for one more meeting wouldn't make that much difference. If there's no one to comment, it'll be very short, in other words.
Right.
Rich, can I just offer, if I remember correctly, at the last public hearing, Rachel suggested that keeping the public hearing open until the 6th of February would give a chance for the students to all come back to school, get together, and be able to participate.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you.
And I appreciate what Mike is saying, and I'm sure that he wants to get moving. But I'm just considering the needs of the community over the needs of the developer. And if there's a chance that people want to weigh in and people have things to say, this consolidation issue is completely brand new. This just came up in the last few weeks or a month, and now everything is different. And this project is right in the middle of it. And there's so many ways that this is going to affect it.
I would caution us, Mike, I can't have you continue to speak.
Yeah, speculative.
I think it's best for me to share that, Mike. I think it's best for me to talk about it. Thank you. I don't recommend that we consider this application in the context of whether the town and village will move toward a consolidation at this time. I think we have to be pretty intentional about the law and the zoning and the code and the process that governs this applicant and this application. So I think it would make for a pretty complex scenario, or maybe a more simple scenario if there were to be a consolidation. But I don't think it's this board's responsibility to consider that alongside of this application process.
I'm not sure I'm understanding all of this. So if if we still don't know who's going to be in effect in a charge of the property, if there's going to be a consolidation or not, then what, we make a decision from where we are now,
Yeah.
and then the circumstances change, does that mean that the decision we've made still carries force, or does it then disappear and everything starts all over again?
Well, the question that's before this board right now is the environmental impacts of
Right.
building this project.
Right.
Which really, to me, is not especially related to the issues of the political system. It's really about the physical impacts of the project. So I think that the seeker review can proceed irrespective of any of that discussion. Because the question that we're here to answer is, what are the environmental impacts and how can they be mitigated?
Thanks, Emily. So there's a motion to extend the hearing. Rachel, it sounds like you have a thought about wanting to extend it a defined period of time in alignment with the written comment. My understanding is whatever amount of time we extend the hearing, the written comment would always have to extend beyond the time we extend the hearing. So if you are proposing an amendment to the motion, we have to be clear about what you're proposing, and then we have to vote.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, add another 30 days for written comment. Um,
So are you making a motion to extend it for 30 days of written comment? I'm making a motion to keep the public hearing open. The full public hearing open.
Yeah, we understand.
That's my
that.
motion. And whenever you
Thank you.
guys are ready to vote, we can vote.
We're having a discussion about it.
Yeah.
But I mean, like I said, I don't think it makes that much difference one way or the other. I think we leave it open. It gives another opportunity. I don't know. I mean.
Okay.
You know, I don't.
Well, your options are to
Uh,
second the motion or propose something different, or we can proceed with,
Well,
or
let's
your
say-
option is to second the motion or proceed, or
Right.
propose something
Right,
different.
so let's say I second it and you guys, then everybody either votes yes or no, and what if we have a two one way, two the other way, then.
Okay. So you second the motion to
Sure. I'll
keep the
go
public
ahead and try
hearing.
that.
Is that your?
Yes,
Wait,
Yeah.
to what?
I'm gonna second her motion to keep the public hearing open.
Okay,
Since I,
let's move to a vote.
no, I didn't.
The motion didn't have a date either.
It didn't.
I think I have a question. I have a question. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
The, is it the case that, I think is what I'm trying to say. If the decision, if the village and the town decide not to combine, then does that put the, what we're discussing and deciding on is right now about village property?
It's about a actual project on an actual piece of land, so I
That
think
is,
that's.
but that is under the villages.
No, it's in the
No,
town.
it's in the
town.
town.
So who's, maybe I just don't understand the mechanics of this, because, you know, we're making decisions, we're asking, we're whatever. And it's just hard not to think of this as like, you know, it's like, I feel like it's almost like talking, and then at some point we'll have a piece of paper in front of us and we'll write it down. So I don't know how.
The assumption is that it's gonna be annexed. That's what they're assuming, because if it weren't,
Then we wouldn't be doing this.
I I don't know. I guess then the town could buy the water from the village or something. I have no idea.
Yeah, but I think we want to be really intentional about trying to focus on the issue at hand, which is we are the board charged with conducting the review of the environmental impact of this project.
Right.
We have opened a public hearing based on a draft environmental impact statement that has been open for 90 days. It is absolutely independent of a new exploratory process by this village and board and town board as to whether these two municipalities will merge at some point in the unknown future. We cannot consider that in the context of what we are discussing right now, because it has no bearing whatsoever and may have no reality at all.
So I think I understand better the question I'm trying to ask. What we decide, given the constraints and the freedom that we have to make this decision, is it the case that that's not the, am I understanding correctly? That's not the be all end decision, because if there is a consolidation, then the process kind of has to start all over again?
Okay. Oh, I think I hear what you're saying, but this piece of it is really about the physical environmental
Right.
impacts of the project. And so this is not counting on there being a consolidation. It's actually planned on there not being a consolidation and just this piece of land being annexed into the village.
Okay.
So whether the two entities consolidate or don't and the annexation, it's really not related to this question that's before this board, which is what are the environmental impacts and how are they mitigated? There is a process though that's laid out in the seeker regulations, and we've been through a lot of those steps. The step that we're in right now is the public hearing. Really, the reason to keep a hearing open is if you're continuing to get new information, or you have some specific idea that there's some group of people that have not yet had a chance to comment. But in this case, we did have it open in November, in December, and then we kept it till February instead of January, knowing that the students would be back. So, that process has really kind of come to a close. And then once the hearing is closed, we can move on to the next steps in the process. So that's the small decision we need to make right now, is just whether we're at that point of closing the hearing. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna update my motion. You ready? My new motion is, I'd like to make a motion to keep the public hearing open for another 30 days.
Thanks, Amy.
Second, I mean, does it be till the March 5th meeting? Or does that mean till the March 19th meeting?
If we can get it in, if we have to make it for 40 days, we'll do that. Whatever works with our calendar, Autumn.
March 5th is next, first March meeting.
So there's a motion to extend this public hearing and open it in the March. Well, I'm trying to add one more point of clarity to the motion, that we would be extending the public hearing until the March 5th meeting.
And what's the disadvantage to doing that?
The disadvantage to doing that is none of the next steps of the process can begin, and that we are, in my perspective, that we are likely to not receive any new information, although we may receive the same information from new people or not. I think the student group has been anticipated for some time and not come to the forum, or anyone else. We're receiving information from new people occasionally, but we're not receiving any new information. And what we are going to vote on is whether ostensibly we would be extending this process for approximately 45 more days, because what we'd be doing is reopening a public hearing for some number of people to make comments that would almost be impossible to be something new. And then we have to add on those 10 additional days of written comment. So, but I am going to ask that we vote on whether this is the way we want to proceed as a board.
Well, I feel like the most important issues have been as far as the environmental issues have been the inadequacy of the maps and the responses that appear to disregard our considerations for protecting the wetlands in favor.
They haven't had an opportunity to give consideration for our comments yet, the applicant, because we're still remaining in the hearing.
Right, no, that they responded to the comments that were made by the environmental consultants that we hired, who suggested that they follow more stringent practices, and their response was that they would, because the land was in the town, they were going to follow that they were, because it was going to be next to the village, they
So-
were going to follow the village's more lax regulations in terms of the wetlands.
So I'm looking forward to that conversation. We can't have it until we close this public hearing. So is there a second to maintain the public hearing open to our first meeting in March with the written comment period extending beyond that?
I'm ambivalent on this.
Well, I'm going to move to close the public hearing. If there's not a second on that motion, I move to close the public hearing tonight to extend the comment period, the 10 days required, and so that we can move on to the project.
Okay, I see.
To close this public hearing, if you really want to close this public hearing.
It's not up to me.
I know.
We're a board.
I understand. I don't want to be a nuisance. I don't feel like there needs to be a rush to close it.
Then you can second my motion and we can leave it open.
No, because if I second her motion, I don't know, I feel like I'm in a prisoner's dilemma or something like that.
Then you guys could vote to close it.
Why don't we do that?
There's a motion and a second to close the public hearing tonight.
Close it.
Want to do a voice vote?
I vote no. Amy Cohen.
I'm gonna say no.
Yes. Aye. So we don't have a decision to close the public hearing at this time. If there's a new motion to consider, we can do that. The only thing we can do is consider a new motion at this moment.
Yes. The difficulty that I mean, I don't know if you're gonna say this is relevant or not, but the difficulty that I've seen with this, the basic difficulty with this project, to me, is that you have a developer whose specialty is developing student housings and then turning around and selling them. And I don't know what the relationship is even here. You say you're the attorney representing the developer, but you're the landowner, and so I feel like it's almost like there's a disconnect between what the public wants, what people want. They want to protect the environment. They want to provide low-income housing. And this purpose of the project is the price point, the high price point of the student rent. And so it's like a disconnect. And I feel like that's why you want to close the hearing.
But it's a really important question you're asking,
It's like a
Rachel.
basic disconnect, and
it's a really important question you're asking among many.
Yeah.
But this is, we can't discuss that question at this time. This is not the time to discuss it. We are in a procedural moment right now where we need to decide whether we are going to agree that we've received enough points of consideration that we want to begin the discussion. Or do we believe that there are new points of consideration that some folks who missed the memo for 3 months have not come to bring to our attention, and therefore are deserving of us maintaining this public hearing and suspending the important conversations that you want to have and I want to have. So this is a procedural conversation and a procedural consideration that we're obligated to have to do right now. And it is absolutely in honor of all the difficult questions that you're struggling with around this project. But this is not the time to discuss those difficult questions. This is the time to decide how we're going to proceed with this process, this obligation we have as a board to our community and to the applicant to make a decision about how to move this process. If it's absolutely necessary for more voices to be heard, there's a written process for them to do that. And they've had 3 months to do it. And that's why I feel strongly about the motion I've offered. And, but we are a board and we will function the way we're supposed to, but we have to stick with the procedure, not the complexities of the project, because this procedure is what's keeping us from discussing the complexities of the project.
Okay. All right, make a motion to close the hearing and I'll vote to close it. But I just want to make sure that our concerns are really being addressed here. It's just.
We're absolutely gonna dig in on the project. That's what I'm actually anxious to do.
Okay.
And to have our missing colleagues to be a part of it too. So there's a lot of work to do on this project. Was that a motion to close the public hearing? I second that motion. Do another vote. We need a vote.
Aye, did I?
Only if you want
It's the
to.
right answer. No, I.
I think she said.
She can hear me from here. Can you call?
I can kind of hear you guys.
Amy, there was a motion from Rachel to close the public hearing, and I seconded the motion, and Ellen and Rachel have voted aye.
Okay, and I'm voting no.
Aye.
I'm voting no.
So vote of 3 votes to 1, the public hearing for PB 21 AX New Paltz Apartment is closed, and there remains an opportunity for submission of a written public comment for 10 days after today's closure of the public hearing, which will be considered in the compilation of all of the comments that then we all get to talk about in a meaningful way with our other colleagues in multiple meetings from this point forward. Thank you. Thanks, Amy. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for the board. Thank you, Andy. I'm sorry I said that Andy couldn't vote.
Thank you for your patience.
I didn't know the change of the vote. Yeah.
It's
I'll be behind it, sir. Thank you very
about quorum here. Like, that's what we do. Okay.
He should be.
Oh, you mean Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster. Mr. Schuster. We'd like to take you up on your offer to volunteer.
Yes.
Can you provide your information to our colleague, Augie?
I'll get email on the phone on there.
Great. Great. Thanks. All right, the next applicant is PB 23-8, 5 Prospect Street, Prospect Estates LLC. Hello,
Hey, guys.
how you doing?
Is everyone?
Good. Hello. Hi. Welcome.
So we should start with 5.
All right, so yes, we're gonna start with 5. I want to manage expectations for what we're gonna accomplish today. Just ask you to bring what is new and what you're bringing to us today. I know there was submissions as early as yesterday, so many of us haven't reviewed those yet. But I think that, you know, having seen the application before, I think Rachel might have seen it, I think Ellen might not have. And also, me personally, having been on a site visit with HBC and with another member where we considered some of the initial ideas around the project, I think the best thing would be to do for today is to catch us up on what's being proposed for the project. And I'd like to talk a little bit about what considerations have been given to some of the use and design conversation that was had the day we were all together. And then I think we deserve the opportunity to be able to see what was submitted most recently and put it onto a new agenda. Thanks.
Sure. All right, so as you mentioned, we did meet out at 5, and we also talked briefly about some issues on 7, which we'll talk about separately. In taking those comments and information from everyone involved, HBC and everyone that was there, we did shrink the footprint of the building to be more in scale with what's already built on site. And we also moved the building closer towards the Main Street side of the property, just to balance out the view of the building, I guess. And we also added some planting, some trees, and some shrubbery there. Yeah, we reduced the footprint. Yep, and we also did make a change to the number of bedrooms. We have 3 bedrooms each now, and only one of the bedrooms in each unit has its own bathroom. I know that was a comment that someone had made regarding use of the property. And we also substantially changed the look of the exterior of the building on all 4 sides. Again, taking in comments from the HBC that was there, increasing widths of trim and doing some detail siding, some dormers, sort of make it fit in with the neighborhood in the area. Actually went around and took some photos of houses up and down the street just to kind of see what kind of elements were built in there. And we tried to incorporate as many of those as we could in this property to make it sort of fit in a little better. Sam also had an engineer take care of the site utilities. Gardner Engineering submitted all of that, and I guess he did review it with Blue as well.
Blue one submitted to Blue.
Right, and I guess Blue didn't have any comments. I don't know if he's gotten back to the board with anything formally or not, but I think he's on board with what we're going to do utility wise there.
What about the runoff? Someone was saying that they were worried about their property flooding.
Yeah, that we can talk about that, and that is 2 properties over, so it would be 1 away from 7. But it's a good question. Let's have it on the list of things we want to discuss in terms of stormwater and impervious surface and things like that. So I'm hearing some of the things that were discussed were reducing the footprint, moving the building slightly further, what would be south, landscaping. It's 3 bedrooms each now with 1 private bath.
Yes, in one of the bedrooms.
In
There's
one of the
also another
bedrooms,
comment.
and that there's some redesign of the physical appearance, the exterior appearance to consider community character, and that some engineering was submitted. Another question we had, or another conversation we had that day was around parking and sort of that acknowledging and respecting the idea that instead of having significant paved surface in the front and parking lot, if you will, in the front, that there was consideration for potentially creating some parking that would be less visible from Prospect. And then there was also, and forgive me, I'm not remembering exactly, but there was also a question around the garage and whether where you would come into that. So can you talk about parking and the
Sure.
garage?
That was part of moving the building a little bit to the south. Basically, what we did was we centered the parking now on the driveway that comes in with plantings on both sides to help shield that parking area from visibility. Given setbacks and the fact that we can't have any parking or within or outside of the setbacks, I should say, it really wasn't feasible to put any parking on the back because of the way the land comes up down in the back more.
Yeah.
It has to be out front. But what we did was we mitigated that with plantings and also centering the parking on the driveway itself, so that this way it's not a large expanse.
And is there still, remind me if there's still, I don't have my laptop because I'm
Sure.
not connecting.
No,
So
it's okay.
is there still a garage?
Yes.
to the- Have you all seen this? We have one small one.
The one that we have has just the site plan and the utility plan. Is there one with any kind of, that shows the architectural?
Yes, there's 3 drawings that were submitted.
I think they came very.
They did come in recently, yeah.
That's why we're just doing this as a conversation for the moment, and then we all got to do our homework.
Absolutely.
That's what's important about it.
Absolutely.
And another thing, I remember that the front elevation used to have 3 doors, and there
Right,
was
we
that
reduced
experience
that
there. It
to
looked like an
one.
apartment building with 3 doors. Now there's 1 door.
Right, exactly.
With the garage off to the side, with the front gable.
Yep.
And
Right,
there's
we
2 doors
changed
in the
up-
rear, which are necessary for basement entrance and upstairs entrance.
Right, for utility space also.
This is the elevations of it now.
Buildings on Church Street. Yeah.
That's the other, that's 7. That's 7. And the only other parking consideration, and you may have said it wouldn't work because of the setback, but we had thought maybe there would be a way to park on the south side of the building or some parking on the south side, but that's not feasible.
It really isn't with the setbacks at what they are in the shape of the property.
Yeah.
I don't have it in front of me, but it just didn't, I'd look various different ways to try and put it in a different spot. And it's
You'd
just
have to have an easement with the other property.
potentially, yes. And even then, we still can't have parking outside of the setbacks. It would still have to be within that area, and it kind of limits.
And
where
how
that
many,
can
may I
go.
take this now? And how many spots are proposed available on?
We have 4 outside and 2 in the garage.
2 inside and 4.
Right, 2 inside the garage and 4 out front.
So if I'm looking at the building footprint, the garage is north, right?
Yes,
So
correct. This is the
Prospect.
garage here,
Yeah.
right, which basically lines up with the access driveway comes in. And then we've got spaces in
Oh,
front of it
okay.
over here and then nothing down in there. That's why we put the trees in here and plantings there and the trees down the side.
So the planting would shield the parked cars from Prospect,
Yes, that was the idea.
and it would be 4 exterior parking and 2 would be inside.
Inside the garage, correct.
Yeah, the only thing we want to consider there in terms of like when it's in use is a lot of people don't pull into the garage. And so you may be setting up a situation where an occupant is going to leave their car in the driveway and you'd still have some driveway.
There really isn't
parking.
room
Really
for
isn't room,
that.
right?
There
So-
isn't.
so the
it's
requirement-
not.
which could be something that finds its way into resolution, would be the requirement is that people use the garage for, resident parking is using the garage so that, because there's not another way to place the car. So the driveway, and forgive me, I'm going a little stream of consciousness because I'm recalling all the things. The driveway is on 5? 3. It's on 3, right. So, and
We
that's.
do have the easement.
We have that
yes.
easement. So the driveway is owned by 3.
Yes, correct. Right,
You
the
enter
property
and then
line
you're
is
on
right here.
5 once you enter.
Right,
And then on 5, there's 4 outdoor, or excuse me, exterior parking spots. Shielded by landscaping. Theoretically, we can look more closely at that.
Right.
And then 2 inside.
Right.
And then where the existing building is, which provides screening for 7. That's a current like barn shed. There's a building there too, right?
No, there's no other building
No.
on this property.
Only one.
Right.
There's
just
even a
one.
note that says existing building to be
Right, that's the
removed.
footprint of the building that's there now.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Oh, okay. So can you show me the outline of the existing building's footprint versus the new one? You can even do it in pen.
Yeah. That's the square of the building that's there now, as opposed to what, so we're moving it back and
So it's
to the
back and
south.
over significantly south.
Right.
And so what you'd see from up the driveway is, sort of this gable elevation with the garage.
Right.
Any, okay, so anything else just to share in this download? And then I think we just want to, be able
Really,
to,
I'm fine. I mean,
is there anything we need to vote on in terms of moving this forward, Emily?
No, the next thing would be setting a public hearing, but since you just got this
I think we should
material,
wait.
yeah.
To review it with the group before the public hearing, and then we could get one into the next meeting after a more thorough review. Technically, we're not even obligated to look at things that came in as recently, so I just want to honor the group and know that we'll have a full board to see this in our next meeting. And but I can acknowledge that there's a lot of things that are different about the application. I know that the conversation started with, can't you preserve the existing structure? And then was proposed as something that looked very different than what's here. And I can say that, without any expectations without any expectations, I can say there's a lot of responsiveness to what's been proposed versus what was originally proposed. So I think that is acknowledged.
Great. Appreciate that.
Did you get Terry Duncan's comments?
Yes, all right, I was
Pretty
emailing
detailed.
those, yes, right.
Is there anything in there that you would want to comment on?
No, not specifically, no, unless Sam wants to.
No, I have
Yeah.
mine.
We'll give these to you.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I haven't seen those yet.
Well, I mean, in terms of the interior. But I guess this is.
Could I have that one that you?
Oh, yeah, you can keep this, absolutely. It's A1, 2, and 3. Or A1 is the site, and 2 is the plans, and 3 is the elevation.
Just gonna make a note to look at 3 because I don't have.
Really? That, when you, the 920,
Maybe the one you sent.
the 9/7, you said you didn't have, I sent them to you this afternoon.
I think it. Oh, there it is.
Okay,
This is the driveway.
okay.
Parking lot. the garage,
Yeah, she did have it.
Planting, screen the parking.
So his comments here are assuming they're not.
Amy, was there anything that we want to ask about this application? My suggestion was that we got the material very recently. We've learned a lot about what's been changed. So now the opportunity to look at it carefully and come to the next meeting, review it, open a public hearing, and go from there.
Thank you, Rich. I agree with you.
About the limitations on the people residing in the house.
Well, it's 3 bedrooms per unit. So is there what would be the consideration there if there's not? Well, I think we can certainly acknowledge the public's concerns about that, about the issues around that issue throughout our village. And I want to just say that, you know, I'm not the mayor of the Village of New Paltz, but I do believe that we should do what we can to enforce the rules and our code and our laws. I don't think it's an easy thing to enforce, and I think while the New York State thinks that it's managed to define family, I think it's a pretty complex thing to define. But what I am thinking about in terms of this application in particular is it's proposing 3 bedrooms per unit. And the 4th large room, other than the kitchen, is a living room without a closed door. I think it's really important to say, because it has been a source of comment, that there are houses in the community that take common spaces and make them bedrooms and then add bedrooms to their rental possibilities. So we would want to make sure that that's in the resolution, for example, that says that the layout will remain as is. There won't be any new bedrooms added. But unless I'm missing something, I feel like having 3 rooms is one way to fundamentally address the question of whether you can have more than 3 people that are unrelated.
I don't think that's crazy to think that you could go to every house and find out who's related. And I mean, it's basically a code for, we don't want students to live here. I mean, that's like, you know, at one point they were gonna make a law against having a couch on your porch because, I don't know.
Students or young professionals, people live differently, but I understand why it's a code too. And I understand the code. If I can just say, I understand what you shared, Ms. Nash. You know, there's a purpose for those types of guidelines in certain zones.
Well, it's the
And so it
behavior that's-
exists.
I mean, there are students that are quiet and well behaved, and there are students that are loud and obnoxious. There are landlords that are great, and there are landlords that are slumlords.
That's true.
So how, you know,
That's true too.
it has
So-
to be on an individual basis. But I think you guys should talk to each other. I mean, they're right here. They say they've been going to your store and supporting your business all these years, and these are your neighbors.
And I'm a great landlord, and my students or my people lives in my apartments, they contest to it. Go to my record in court, see how many times they sued me. None.
I mean, this is like, I think it's
Yeah,
a good,
that's what I'm saying.
a
But
good
if the neighbor,
discussion
if
because
the neighbor feels
the
other way,
neighbors-
that's their own feeling. And I think I've been targeted for some reason or another, and I don't want to share my thoughts.
Well, I want to say that we're in possession of the application. We understand all the changes that have been made.
Yeah.
And some of the new information that's been shared, like the utilities and things. That means we have our homework to do. And that means we'll open a public hearing and in our next meeting.
Yeah.
And we'll keep it moving.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. So 7 Prospect.
Yes.
Let's do like
All right.
like they would do in like a sitcom where you leave the room and come back.
Yeah, step out and come back in.
DB 2309,
Yes.
7 Prospect. So again, just bringing folks up to speed, especially those that might not have been in the last conversation. So 7 Prospect currently exists as a single family home on that property. With an outbuilding that is in disrepair. And the proposal is to make it a 2-family residence, which again is in the R2, and to remove the barn or the outbuilding and and create some parking. My understanding is first of all, I have a question to go back to that same visit we had together. There was the idea of whether it would be possible to have a renovation or a rebuild of that second building as opposed to a contiguous building that makes it a two-family extending in toward the west. Was that considered, and did we get any more input on that?
Well, yeah, the zoning code doesn't allow for two independent buildings to be on one lot. So whatever gets done there has to be attached or one continuous building. That's what led us to the current layout that we have now, because it makes it one building.
And you're choosing not to go to consider an appeal.
No.
Okay, I wanted to make sure that was
There's
considered.
other reasons too. The footprint of the building is half of it is outside of the current setback requirement.
Mhm.
So it's out. There would be numerous variances that I don't think would be worthwhile trying to achieve because they would be largely self-created, and that's generally not looked well upon by zoning boards.
What was that, Sam?
Also, the foundation of the existing barn it's done.
Couldn't build on it.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
very.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that
Sure.
idea was explored,
Yes.
because it was considered, that barn has value to the neighbors because it provides screening in a lot of different ways. And so, we'll have to think about how to account for the fact that that screening could go away in a new project.
You're opposed to putting some trees and
No, we said
landscaping
we're gonna
there.
put landscaping and.
Yeah, I
trees
mean,
in
we
the
could
area.
certainly put some landscaping along that.
But that barn
property
is,
line.
the way it stands, it's a matter of time before it falls down. And we had the mayor and the building inspector and Bill Mary came and looked at it, and there's no one talking about.
There were some mulberry trees there. That's a really good native tree to plant.
We're not removing any trees. The trees,
In terms of
it's
like
not in the way.
putting trees in there.
Rachel's talking about in terms of replacing
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
because the mulberry trees that are there seem to be doing pretty well. And it's,
So, so I just wanted to know that that was explored because it was an explicit conversation we had with multiple people involved.
Right.
So now what I think is here is that the building inspector originally approved an application as a two-family dwelling. And maybe I may need to lean on Emily to understand the distinction here, but in the latest plans, the labeling indicates two single-family homes with a connection. And so we have to be clear about whether it's a two-family building. What would make that distinction clear, and
I
what?
think the labeling should not refer to single-family residence.
Well, what we did on the site plan is because it's an existing single-family residence, but what we're doing is we're converting that into a two-family by putting the addition on.
But then it says proposed single-family residence.
What should that read then? I mean, legally, I guess, I'll make it whatever, is acceptable. I mean, it doesn't change the physicality of it, but what would you like it to read, I guess? Because the reality is it's going to be a one structure that's a two-family residence. If you want me to,
It's a proposed addition, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay.
And it's up to the board if the design of this, conforms to the neighborhood and all
Yeah,
that.
so we have to do some more review. What has been, and again, apologies if I should have seen it before today's meeting. I don't know when things came in, but can we be clear on what's been submitted and what, if anything, is different than what might have been looked at several months ago?
Sure. Yeah,
Similar to what we did in the first.
Sure, absolutely.
just For today.
the site plan hasn't changed in terms of the layouts of anything that's moved. No, nothing's been moved or changed there. I will change the labeling and we'll be adding some landscaping across the north property line. The last time we were here, the board did request some further elevation drawings be made of what the entire structure would look like at the end build out. So we provided that. This is what the new building comes up to here. And then we have an entry way here, and then the new building is there. So the existing and then new is in the back. And then There's no change at all from the street view. The entire building, the new building will be completely behind the existing, the new addition would be behind the existing structure. So I want to be clear of that. And then, you know, this is the other side that faces 5 Prospect is this elevation here. So just wanted to give a sense of how the whole building would come together with the addition and the existing. That's really the major change that was requested last time we were here.
Would he be able to sell them separately?
No, it's one lot and it's one building.
He could sell.
No, absolutely not. Not that I'm aware of.
It's not subdivided.
How much rent would
Yeah.
you charge for each?
I
of
think
them?
this,
Oh, absolutely. You can keep that as well.
How much rent would you charge for the houses?
A house with 3 bedroom, about 2,100 plus utility.
so in these two instances, so one is, I think I just want to make sure that we're clear about some of the considerations that are in effect. One is that adding another family, another full house of 5 bedrooms.
Four.
So the
Yeah, we can have
proposed
9 total.
new is 4, the existing is 6, reducing to 5.
Right,
Yes.
we're taking
Okay, so
one
this is
away
it.
from the
So,
existing.
you know, the idea of proposing that new building attached to an existing house is pretty inconsistent with what is being, with what exists in the neighborhood, other than some things that have been built to be apartment buildings over the past years. And so I think there are questions around sort of like community fit of having something that is 2 full-size connected houses together. It's an unusual layout for the neighborhood. And I think that's something that this board has to consider about the project.
Some things that have been built to be apartment buildings. The reason why we did it that way was because we wanted a common entrance between the addition and the existing, and that's why we ended up where we did. I don't know how we could, I mean, we could, I wouldn't want to eliminate the common entrance to the 2, but essentially that's what we would have to do is push the addition right up against the other back wall of the building, and that doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense.
Meaning, the only other way to do it would be to have them be adjoined, like share a wall.
Well, they are adjoined. I mean, they are
They're
sharing a wall,
adjoined, but
but
they don't share the wall, they share the entrance.
the entranceway, right. I just don't
So
see
I'm
what that
just
would
pointing
do.
out that,
No, I-
that we may have a discussion about the fact that that's pretty inconsistent with how buildings in the neighborhood present currently. The other question is, in this case, that discussion about how many people make a family and whether there's more than a family in any of these spaces is in effect in the new unit because it's 4 bedrooms. So I'm guessing you've given that thought and you're aware that the code would prohibit, and the code is written today and the definition of family is written today, would prohibit 4 unrelated individuals from occupying the house.
And plus we're reducing the 6 to 5. So that's also will help to monitor that issue.
Yeah.
So that will help that way. So this way we have 2 different families living in those 2 houses, 2 apartments, because it's going to be a 2-family house. So that will help in that issue.
But what I
So
was saying is
we
that,
try to make them separate, and the building inspector is not, he said is not allowed to have 2 separate.
second independent.
No, yeah, so that's where we at, so. And even we added a head roof to the existing building to make it join the second building in the back to make it a unique look to it. So that's an addition head roof in the front. Which is, it doesn't exist now, it's just a flat roof. Remember we discussed with when in the visit?
Yes.
Yes, and everybody encouraged it.
You see buildings that kind of look like that when they have a house that has a little connection, to the garage.
Mhm.
Except this is another house, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying it's not like visually completely out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard you. And Lee, when I'm looking at the front elevation, you have this dotted line. Is that what would be visible of the?
Oh,
of
this
the-
over here, yeah, that shouldn't have been a dotted line. I'm not sure why that's dashed, but yeah, this light line in the back would be way, I mean, beyond. I don't really think visually you would see it. I mean, I could stand out there and take some pictures or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be the outline of the addition
Yep.
behind what's there already. Right.
And then, how many total, parking spots are proposed for this?
I would have 9.
Nine, which is we have including this.
We're really gonna have to focus on the detail that will address significant mitigation of what it will be like for a neighbor to experience literally a parking lot facing their property where that barn exists today. I think that's, you know, I understand some planting is something that is intended, but I would look for some more ideas from folks, but that is,
Other than
that's gonna
plants,
be a
other
big,
than
A
trees.
fence, okay, well, I think the plants will look nicer than a fence.
you know, we absolutely in a residential, you
Or a
know.
tree will look much better than the barn, ready to fall apart.
Well, but the barn has a function today, right? The function is that it's an obstruction.
Well, but we're not using it.
I know,
It's not used.
but it, you know, we have to acknowledge that it has a
So the
function.
option either trees or a fence, which is either one is okay with us.
And was there any, and forgive me, I'm asking this question totally open-ended, were there any other considerations of where parking could exist that wouldn't have 7 spots aligned to, you know, lined up against 9?
Well, again, it comes back to setback issues. And we also wanted to work within the confines of the existing driveway and parking that's already exists there, rather than expand away from that. So
Is there a
it's really
slab under that
combination of
barn?
both.
No,
It's just a dirt floor.
that's,
right?
no, it's wood.
Oh, it's wood. It's a wood floor.
The floor is
over
wood, the
Right.
foundation is wood. That's why everything is falling through.
So it's not like you're using an existing impervious surface to create that parking.
No, and in fact, our
necessarily.
parking in the back, the new parking area that we have is a partially pervious system where it allows, I forget the percentage, we've got it on the drawing there, though. I think it's like 50 or 60% pervious. It's a grid pattern that gets filled with stone or something that allows the water to drain through it rather than run off. So that was
So
part
you're
of our
not using
plan
any
there.
asphalt.
No, the new parking area in the back is that grid system. The existing paved driveway that comes in is asphalt, but we're leaving that alone. In fact, if anything, we're reducing some of that asphalt.
I would suggest that we do a site visit over to see the, you know, the position of the parking. Somebody
Sure.
should
I'll go.
see the position of the parking and just what could be a meaningful obstruction. You know, just absolutely, I think we ought to consider how, you know, 7 spots lined up to an adjacent property.
And maybe it's a
With-
combination of some fencing adjacent to the parking and then maybe trees also as well, maybe a combination of both.
You guys know where I am, anytime, come and take you
And
there.
it comes exactly to the setback. Now, in the rear, there is probably 30 feet of space between the required setback and those 2 proposed parking spots.
Right, but the property does drop off significantly
Yes,
towards
that's
the
why
rear,
we
so.
want to have a visit, because
Right,
my inclination would say, isn't it possible to put more parking
on
here?
paper, it would look like it is, but when you stand out there,
It's
it,
a steep slope.
Right,
and
when you
it's
get to
filled
the-
With trees and.
right.
Which is that property will take you to John Joseph property.
And that was the other thing, we didn't want to just cut any trees that were already there in that area of it as
Okay.
well. We were trying to minimize that as well.
This has not been classified yet as a type 2. Or already classified? Oh,
yeah,
I
no,
see a
we
note
already
that says,
did that.
okay,
Yeah.
they're already referred, okay. So we, and what about material as relates to the existing house and the new house? Material, exterior material, color, like what's gonna be the continuity of the two buildings?
The existing building now has aluminum siding on it, which is not favorable, I don't think. I mean, we'll be using a clapboard building material, but as we had talked, we're on 5. We're open to using like a hardy board or some sort of solid surface material that, you know, it's gonna be much more visually appealing than vinyl siding.
And making it
Existing,
uniform
or, I mean, so-
between, across the two buildings, so replacing the existing and making it uniform?
Yeah, in the front, when we add in the hip roof, we gotta make it look alike.
Right.
We have to, otherwise it's gonna look ugly.
Well, we would be using horizontal siding. The only difference might be the width, you know, because right now I think it's an 8-inch aluminum siding that's on there now, whereas we would probably use a 6 or a 4 for the horizontal siding for the rear, but it would all be the similar type of siding.
Yeah, but the aluminum on one and something new on the other is not gonna look good. I mean, and I don't mean not look good, meaning my own personal aesthetic. I mean, not look good from a planning board approval perspective.
So anything we touch in, especially the
you
existing
could-
flat roof area, that gonna be with the building similar. It's gonna look exactly the same. So if we have to redo the siding, we'll put in a new roof on it anyway.
What about
So the whole
paint?
idea gonna
What
mix.
about paint colors if we were to make it, if we were to paint the aluminum siding rather than re-side the entire building? Because that's a substantial cost. I mean,
The old existing building that's in the front, we're not gonna touch that one.
But what I'm sharing is that it's gonna be one contiguous building with two different sidings. That's gonna look like, you know, it's not gonna look, it's not gonna look the way it should look to be in this place, this position.
The only thing I would say to that is it is all going to be the similar type of siding, and we are open to, I think, painting the existing building so that it matches
Yeah.
color scheme wise with the rest
What
of
could we
it.
see to get a sense?
I don't know, we'd have to look at some colors, I guess.
What could we see? The elevations are obviously black and white and sketch. I'm not suggesting a 3D rendering of any sort, but I'm asking, can we see something that would show us an elevation of the building? Because the elevation of the building in black and white is a very different experience than the elevation of the building with two different exteriors. I think it's important that we kind of get a better sense of how this building is going to look like. As it has to have integrity as one entity. It
Right.
can't look like, it can't look at the end like a building that then had another building
No,
built
we
and
strive
connected by
to
this
do
thing.
that by
So
adding.
that integrity has to be evident to us as a planning board. So I think what we're asking is, we could do it with a site visit, really get a visual of it. Is there a way in your presentation, you know, even something in color that gives some sense of the material, that we could see that this building is going to look like a building that has a uniform integrity?
We could come up with some color samples of something that, you know, we wanted to
Maybe
use.
something close to the yellow we have.
I mean, it's yellow now. It's- Yeah,
Yeah, so something similar to it.
so we could either match that.
Match that with the hardy board,
With the
4
hardy
inches, 4 and 4, that will match.
I'm doing a lot of talking because I'm trying to get a lot of information into our conversation, into our
No,
consideration
that's
for the next time. Is there
very
anything you have? Do we think the next step on this is similar to the other, which is, there are some more things to complete the plans for submission, right?
In terms of what? Well, the landscaping. yeah, but
Landscaping,
we-
for sure, like a real,
site
we
visit,
could have a site visit, but maybe you could come to that with some ideas as to what that would look like. And maybe we can include, both of the neighbors are still here. Maybe the neighbors could take a look at what the proposed buffers might be. You could either join us on the site visit. I'm not good at coordinating, so we might have to ask for some help there. But I think that's important.
I'm available
It's the
tomorrow.
primary, it's the most fundamental consideration of what's happening here on this property. I understand the interest in we understand the interest in making it into the two-family property. We want that to have integrity and have some sense to the way it appears. But once we've eliminated that building and put parking there, we've completely changed the experience of the people in the surrounding, homes. And I think we really want to be considerate about that. And I'm hearing your care of it. So let's make sure we work on a really explicit way to address it.
So you guys want to visit tomorrow?
Can't come tomorrow. Unless you want to.
You say you're always available. Where is that you're on?
Because I'm in the gas station. I live
At the
there.
gas station.
I
Oh,
live there.
so what? You switch it from a Citgo to a Sunoco?
It's been a Sunoco now for 11 years.
I know,
Has it really?
but
Yes.
No,
Wow.
Yes.
I've been up here 9 years.
I
and it
still
was-
refer to it as.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I just refer to it as.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
did the renovation in 17,
Wow.
17, since
Oh, it was-
2017.
yeah, oh, it
Was a
more recent.
Cisco, then we switched to Sunoco.
It was a little more recent, 7
Yeah.
years.
Well, I mean, I still remember it happening.
Yeah, it was a
I wonder
Citgo
what
hut.
happened.
So let's do a site visit. Let's think about how we're gonna make sure we mitigate all the considerations primarily around how this is gonna impact the neighbors. And I do, I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself, but I do want you to consider the idea that there is this attention and consideration for how buildings with more than 3 bedrooms are being used. And you're proposing to build one with more than 3 bedrooms. So it will have to be under the scrutiny of the planning of the building department in order to make sure that it's occupied in a way that's lawful. And that would be in the resolution too.
I don't want to speak for Autumn, but when we get the new submittal with the landscaping and everything, it might be helpful to just give us a complete set for 5 and a complete set for
Sure.
7.
Okay.
Just to make sure that we're looking at the most updated, things.
And everyone has some messages about this project if there's things that get raised in
Do
there.
you want to schedule the visit, or you guys gonna call me?
Can we do that via email, Autumn?
'Cause I wanna
You're
make sure
literally present,
Lee is-
but you want to have Lee present.
Well, this way he's gonna draw what we
Um,
agreed on.
I mean, if it's okay, I can kind of like
When?
Friday afternoon.
Friday, 12 o'clock, I'm okay.
No, a little later than that.
Yeah,
I gotta, I
This
gotta
Friday.
work, man. This is volunteer.
2 o'clock.
I think I can do Friday at 2. Even
I
a
can
little
do
later would
Friday
be
at 2.
easier. Friday at 2 is as late as you could do.
No, I can do
Which
that or
Friday?
later.
This Friday,
This
the
Friday, because we gotta draw.
9th.
9th?
Okay.
You're gonna miss the next
Well,
one.
what I would propose, Allison, what if we have a site visit with some members? We ask them to create drawings of what the buffer would look like. And then we could come back with those drawings and you could see what the proposed buffer would look like. So that we could get it started before you're back. Yeah. There's gonna be a public hearing even. Sure. Because we're gonna set the public hearing in the next meeting for the following meeting, so you'll have notice. If you want someone else that knows about it, you'd have to find that person, but, you could, yeah. You can be in touch, via email and say, here's some ideas. You can offer the applicant ideas.
Yeah.
Sure. So I can come in Friday afternoon. Can you?
What, I'm checking.
Friday
Friday the
afternoon at 2
9th.
o'clock.
I think I can do that, yes.
We can't have more than 2 people at the
True.
site visit.
You want to go?
I mean, I can go separately. I mean, if
You
he's
just
just at the
come
gas
see me in
station.
the station
so-
anytime, I'll take you there.
Where's the gas station?
I live there.
Yeah.
I live there. I
Really?
spent most of my life there.
Okay.
You can go together, you can have more than a quorum if you're just seeing the same. If you're gonna have a discussion, then you should.
It's hard
It's
not
hard, it's
to.
high.
It is.
I don't want to take a risk.
So 2 o'clock Friday there at the.
Yeah. That was Ms. Harshaw's house, wasn't it?
Hmm?
Yeah.
She's a member of the planning board.
So 2 5.
5, 7 was Lisa Field. Lisa Field.
Yes, briefly. No.
That for the 6 students who have.
If I get a family, 100%. Get me a family looking to take 5 bedroom because we're taking one away. I'm ready to go.
So what are you renting by the room? It'll be a.
Yeah, it's a family. And look at my 3 prospects, all families.
No, 3 is the.
Yeah, as I'm saying.
Okay. So the key is that you know the code and you have a building that you have to, you're obligated to the code.
You said the golden word in the beginning of the meeting. It's a whole village issue, not just me.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate not to be targeted for it. And I'm not gonna be the one gonna resolve all the village issues, please. I don't wanna feel uncomfortable being here. And I really appreciate your comment, which is a great one. It's a village problem, not my problem.
Yeah. And it's our responsibility in the context of the village problem to make sure it's a topic in
Of
these
course,
conversations,
of course.
to remind you of the fact that we have a planning responsibility, there's a code enforcement responsibility, and there's an owner's responsibility and a neighbor's
100%.
responsibility. That's the convergence.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So 2 o'clock.
So
Friday.
we'll be back, we'll be on the agenda for next time. Everything will be submitted. We'll have time, we'll have a visit. We'll think about what, some of the issues that could be
That's
addressed.
why
in
if
terms
we're
of
looking for the
screening.
meeting early, this will leave us time to revise it and send it to Aaron. That's why Friday is great.
Is no later than Wednesday, Thursday before the meeting, absolute deadline.
okay.
You can't have the Monday,
Or else
Tuesday,
it's too hard for us to.
Sure. All right, Wednesday.
All right, thanks.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you
Thank
very
you.
much. Sticking it out and being,
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
I'll see you Friday.
Amy, I'm sorry we made you wait, but can you do your, the town board report?
Oh, sure. It's actually not a town board report, but it's a town planning board report.
Okay,
So let me just get my notes here. Basically, one of the main things that's going on, there's something called Brook Farm. It's located on the Mohonk property.
Yeah.
It's being renovated right now. And unfortunately, they found out that their septic was draining into the wetlands at Mohonk. So they're fixing it and they're redoing it. It's going to be very beautiful. And there's a public hearing on February 12th. If anybody's interested, wants to learn more, or has comments.
that's great.
Um,
Yeah.
The other thing I learned about, so that's one thing. The other thing I learned about was that there's an emergency county center, which I knew a little bit about, but it's definitely going to be moving into Paradise Lane, which is the property that Steve Turk was planning on turning into the amusement park hotel butterfly garden. I was on the town planning board at that time. So this property will now come off the tax rolls, and it is being planned by the Ulster County Planning Board, I believe. Emergency County Center of Operations. It'll be monitoring the entire county. There'll be 12 to 15 people working there. What's nice about it is it has easy access to the thruway. Some people are concerned that the dispensary might be opening across the street from it. And there's some other concerns about some extra congestion on the thruway due to a mega warehouse opening up somewhere south of us that I'm trying to get more details on right now. Thank you.
4455. Thanks, Amy. That's great. Yeah, that Brook Farm project is now been posted. So anybody who's interested in that, the 12th is that
Yes, it's
meeting.
actually very, very positive project. I'm really proud of it and I'm happy to see them doing it.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Amy. All right, can I have a motion to close, tonight's meeting?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye,
Okay, thanks, everyone.
good night.
Night.
Oh, now I'm back on.